As we take a live look at the Hard Rock Hotel construction site, we're learning tonight that there's a chance that building may not be imploded after all. Good evening, everyone. I'm Katie Moore.
And I'm Sharice Gibson. Now, that original plan was to implode what's left of the Hard Rock in early January, but today we learned that there is a new plan.
There is. Paul Dudley first broke that story. He joins us live now tonight near the collapse site with the very latest. Paul?
Yeah, Sharice and Katie, according to the NOFD, a new plan for what is going to happen to this partially collapsed Hard Rock Hotel construction site will be shown to city officials tomorrow. The plan is being presented by the building's owners and does not call for it to be imploded. Cleaning up and taking down what is left of the Hard Rock Hotel construction site has been anything but easy. In the weeks following the October 12th collapse, city officials decided on a plan to implode the building. But now the building owners are expected to release a new plan for the city to consider. This one does not call for an implosion.
We've been aware that they were looking at several different things and that some of the footprint that would be affected was rather large. With the implosion plan.
The building is owned by 1031 Canal Development LLC, whose principal owner is Mohan Kailas. On Monday, the group did not comment about the plan. NOFD Fire Chief Tim McConnell admits he does not know all the details of it just yet, but says the location of the Hard Rock makes an implosion more difficult.
Remember, we're talking about the historic French Quarter in close proximity, actually walls shared with other buildings. 30 feet from a parking garage across Iberville. So that's all been part of what we've talked about. Neighbors like Zaria Walters, who lives above the Sanger Theater, does not want to see the Hard Rock Hotel construction site imploded.
The Sanger is really close, so I feel like imploding it might affect the Sanger a little, might bust the wall open a little bit maybe.
Some businesses in the area got the chance to reopen for the first time this weekend. It's been slow at Diva Beauty Supply. The owner says he's not even selling 5% of what he used to. He just wants the area cleaned up before things get worse.
As long as it cleans the block, opens the road, more foot traffic, that's what we're looking for. However they do it, it's their business. Engineers, they know better than me.
The city has hired technical experts that will review the plan before the building owners move forward with any type of new plan, so nothing is set in stone just yet.
Our experts are there to vet the plan and tell us whether it's a good plan or not, to assist us in making that decision. But they will have to get a permit from us to proceed.
And details about this new plan are still unclear, but the city says as soon as they see the plan tomorrow, they will give us more information. Of course, there still is the recovery of the two bodies inside of this building. There still is an active and ongoing investigation. So while the building owners remain responsible for cleaning up this mess, the city does reiterate tonight that they remain in control. That's the story. Live in the French Quarter, Paul Dudley, Eyewitness News, back to you.
Thank you, Paul. Good news tonight from the Sanger Theater. It's going to reopen officially in about 2 weeks. It's been shut down since that Hard Rock collapse, and a temporary protected walkway was put in place in the area. The theater was inside the previous evacuation zone. The first show back at the theater is magician Chris Angel on December 11th.